From Burbank, California, this is Ken Goes Live here on the Good People Association. Tonight, special guest, author, poet, Swiftie, Zara, Lisbon. And now, your host, Ken Napzok. That is me. Hello, everybody. I'm doing my own announcing. Yes, I like my pay rate. I know I can afford it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Ken Goes Live here on the GPA. So happy to have you here. We might have some new people coming on in. We have some old favorites around as well. We do have a live chat going. You can always get involved in the conversation there. You can Streamlab, you can Super Chat, all those kind of things. But this show just runs on the conversation that our guest brings. And we're glad you're all here today. Don't forget to go to thegpa.fun, which is our website. The merch store is up as always, but now more importantly, we have new merch, hoodies. They're there. Oh, Ikaika, you're on board. Oh, Ikaika shyly pressing the buttons. We got the Find the Good. We got the Be Good People. We've got the GPA hoodie. We got the new Positivity Report mug. If you want to have some coffee, juice, or alcohol in the morning with us, that coffee mug is there for you. Don't forget also our episodes of Ken Goes Live, Josh Pretty, Positivity Report, Riley's Cantina are available in podcast form. You can search your favorite podcast location, catcher, wherever you go. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all those wonderful places. Search for the Good People Association. The podcast feed is up there. The Afternoons with Josh, Ken, and Amanda is also its own feed. We're in the middle of transitioning from the old one to that one, so bear with us, but you can search and find it. And very soon, my Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire podcast, Casterly Talk, will be available under the Blue Wire GPA banner. We're working with the fine folks at Blue Wire to bring you the GPA podcast network. The hunk is on, it says King Sport Cow, and the hunk is. So with the housekeeping out of the way, let's get to the top of the show. All right. Top of the show tonight, some things on my mind. I just want to take a different approach in hopes that maybe this will calm some things down here with my arch rivals, the mosquitoes of the world. Yeah, that's right. I know the internet loves lists, favorites, best ofs, and I thought about listing my favorite places to get attacked by mosquitoes. I thought, though, that might be a little antagonistical. It might be me poking the mosquito bear, as it were. I want to take this moment to just congratulate mosquitoes for being the hardest working creatures on this planet. How you get up and into my socks and down towards my ankles to bite me so ferociously that I now have festering wounds like I'm in the medieval times is a skill that I don't think any of us humans have tapped into yet. Your just dedication to the cause is something to be admired. And maybe by paying my respects to you, mosquitoes, you'll stop slowly killing me over the course of a weekend. Oh, mosquitoes, changing the world 17 million bites at a time. Also, what's on my mind today here at the top of the show is one of my heroes. That's right, the creator. Not God, but close enough. George Lucas. You might have seen this picture going around the internet yesterday. Oh, man, the internet does love its funny pictures. Grandpa George going to a museum, wearing jean shorts maybe, or some kind of short, those socks going knee-high, the oversized button-up shirt. Yes, this is the man that built most of our childhoods. And here's the thing, it's easy to poke fun. It's George being George. We know about George. But I was thinking about this a little bit more. Not only do I love George and I love the Star Wars universe, and I think you all owe him for an apology for attacking the prequels in my generation specifically, when George literally predicted about 2016 on with his take on how democracy and governments fail and big organizations fail and fall from within, and not just the Phantom Menace on the outside of it all. But that aside, this is a week in which we are very, I don't have a problem with billionaires getting to space overall. Do what you want to do. You got $1 billion, couple billion, multiple billions, go to space. Fine. I don't know what that says. It's got me worried. But when they're racing to get to other parts of the galaxy, and this man, George, built other parts of the galaxy, even if it's just in our minds and hearts and souls, George gives away most of his money. George donates to charity. George fights the good fights. George builds museums. George is George. He's not flash. He's not pomp. He's not circumstance. He just teached. He needs to teach me to speak in better words. He taught generation after generation with his moral fable, I should say, choices and how your choices determine the next steps in your life and how your choices can go bad and how there's redemption to pull back from those choices. He taught us all valuable lessons while trying to help those around him and help those less fortunate. He's not worried about getting to space. He's worried about our hearts and minds and souls and a comfortable pair of shorts. So George Lucas, people might make fun of you looking like a grandpa going out for a nice raspberry phosphate, but I respect everything you've done. So George Lucas, thank you. And that is the top of the show. Before we get to our special guest here today, we're going to go to a conversation with an Ewok. Hey, I've always wondered. No. Look, it's none of my business. You know that. And quite frankly, it's a hacky joke. If you want to eat grilled Rebel or smoked Imperial, whatever cooks well over an open flame, I'm not going to make fun of it. Like I said, it's kind of hacky, but since I've got you, I've always wondered if they had gone through and finished cooking Han Solo, what would you have put on him? What serves well with a smuggler? Au gratin potatoes, some green beans. What goes on him? Dijon mustard? How do you get Dijon mustard at Brightree Village? No. I'm not suggesting that. I know you have a fully functional import and export kind of based economy. I totally get it. No. Wicket, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I should pay more respects to you. All right, my friends. Yep, that's what I do in my spare time in the Forest Moon of Endor. All right, I'm very excited to welcome my guest here today. She's the author of a few things, but this right now, yeah, you see those Post-it notes? Those are real notes I made. Baby's First Apocalypse is a collection of wonderful poems by our guest today. Please welcome to Ken Goes Live, Zara Lisbon. Yeah, there we go. Oh, you got a one? You're here. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you?
Thank you for having me.
This is spectacular. We are doing an LA thing right now. We are meeting over a show.
That's true. That's 100% true.
That's what we do.
We have just met, and we're here we're here live on a podcast.
You ran into the studio, and I was like, "Sit down. We're gonna do a show. We're gonna get to know each other."
That's how it went.
Now I'll start here. You are married to a friend of mine.
Yes.
Okay. Who's a previous guest of Internet for Old People here. His name's Scott. He's not important here today.
Not today.
He doesn't matter. What matters is you, an author, a poet, and I want to dive right into this. What is the biggest kind of personal reward you take from writing?
Personal reward that I take from writing is the very special event and occasion of when someone has read my work and can tell me what part they loved about it, and especially when that person is young. I feel like when like high schoolers tell me like, "Oh, I loved reading your book. It made like my year so much better." That is an extremely rewarding experience.
Well, I'm nervous right now because I'm not young. So can I tell you I enjoyed your writing?
Yes.
I asked that question first because it's very easy to dive into the origin story of any writer, of any author, where it began. And I'm interested in that stuff too. Did you write a story at 2 and 3 and scribble something and there you go, your journey started? But I love kind of starting with the once you get all through the hard part of creating, which there's always a struggle with writing, like what you take from it. And you're very accomplished already and a long career in front of you. But I want to know, are you comfortable? Do you take stock already in what you do?
That's such a great question. Sometimes I do, but more often than not, I have to stop and remind myself, like, you're 31, you have published 3 books. That's good.
Right.
That's a good thing, because most of the time I'm worried about what I haven't done yet and what I want to do next, and why am I not on bestseller lists, and why is it not a hit TV show yet?
Right.
You know,
Yet.
like that's the really silly stuff that I used to always tell myself growing up, like once you get a book published, stop complaining about everything because that will be all you need. And as soon as I got the first one published, all that went out the window. So I try to remind myself as often as possible.
I made a nice graphic of the books. I can show that, but then you showed up with some wonderful copies of the books. But these are the two books that are already out: Fake Plastic Girl, Fake Plastic World, and then the poems, which we're going to get into that first. This is fascinating stuff. I know you were born in Venice, right?
I was born in New York, but raised in Venice. Yeah, so I spent my whole childhood in Venice.
Out on the oceans here in L.A.,
yes.
And these books take place there. So, but then it spirals into something else. There's some murder. There's some murder mystery. Because you can't have murder without a mystery.
Yeah, that would be weird.
How much of this, including the murder, was taken from your own life?
A lot was taken from my life except the murder. I would say the murder was...
Yet.
That still could happen. Although, you know, like I did grow up in L.A. with like very dark stories always around. So even though in this book her closest friend is murdered, that never happened to me. But there were always those stories, or even when I was in high school, a kid went missing. We still haven't found him to this day. So no one knows what happened to him. So stuff like that always got my imagination going for sure, even if it wasn't happening directly to me.
That's fascinating. Roughly around my high school class, a case that just got solved, Kristen Smart's murder, was my high school area, my college, San Luis Obispo, that whole area. That's weird. Is that just going around? Other people out there? Scott just nod. Do you have someone who was missing? It's dark. I'm making a dark joke, but all right. Yeah, that's weird. The fact, so you're drawing from that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. I love those kind of unsolved mysteries.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
I prefer solved mysteries, to be honest.
Well, that's the journey.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
the journey.
It's the journey.
So I will ask the origin question. When did you make this decision that I know I have these skills, I want to develop these skills, and I want to do something with these skills?
It was originally when I first started writing stories when I was 8, and I thought it was so cool and so fun. But my original goal with writing, you might appreciate this, is that I wanted to meet Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen when I was 8 years old. Yeah. And I thought if I could write a movie that they could star in, then I could meet them. So that's actually how I started writing. And then it wasn't until I was 16, so 8 years later, that I realized, I'm actually not bad at this, and my mom encouraged me to pursue it.
Well, that's pretty valuable. Also, what shows me is that at 8, you already understood how to make it in this business. Right? Option, make twice the money. It'll happen. It'll happen. They could start, something like this. This is wonderful. A published book is just one alone is a tremendous effort, and I only have one, and probably will only have one, because at least 3 or 4 times during the writing process, and people think I'm joking, was face down on my bed in a pillow crying that I cannot go on.
I believe.
Share your breakdowns.
I believe it.
Share your writing breakdowns.
I think when I'm writing novels, and I am writing one now, I have a nervous breakdown every day.
Where do you think that comes from?
What is that? Like, why can't we just write?
Yeah.
And like maybe it's difficult, but that doesn't mean you have to have a meltdown.
I love all professions. I was in a day job that was completely different from what I do now, and I had some bad days, and I have those days, but I never remember breaking down.
Right.
Does the bank manager break down
No.
about bank managing?
No, not about. No, it may be about like where's my life going.
That might be a different.
But like not
about the job.
Not about the job. No.
Yeah.
No, and maybe he likes his job. Like maybe he likes the stability of it. I think maybe that's the key of it. Is with writing. There's just no where to ground yourself, really. So
there's no real finish line with creative work, because like I said, you've got. I'm on my desk here. I got 3 of your works.
Yeah.
That's an amazing accomplishment, and it sounds like you give yourself that room to say, "Hey, I did that," but it's still not the end, and it's a hole we're constantly chasing to fill.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Zara, what are we doing?
How are we going to, what I ask myself all the time is, how am I going to, I mean, if I'm not satisfied now, then I'm not going to be satisfied with Pulitzer Prizes and Nobel Peace Prizes. And so how do I, the goal then would just be to work on being happy, satisfied. Happy is a stretch. Satisfied now. It has to be now, or it's not going to be down the line.
That's I think that ties into kind of the idea of it's not the destination, it's the journey, and all those kind of bumper sticker things.
Yeah.
But they're bumper sticker things for a reason.
For a reason.
And it's easy for you to say that to yourself, and it's easy for me to go, yeah, you're right. But every day waking up, and I'm sure you look at this and go, I could have done better, or why isn't this?
That's like all I think about is how I could have done better and how much I've learned since I wrote them.
Yeah. And how you got to learn to, I guess with anything in life, you got to learn to leave behind that period of time and move on.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. And say, I was that age. It was my first and my second novel. Come on, go easy on yourself.
Yeah. And the fact that you have a one, have a two, now a book of poems.
Yeah, book of poems. That's good.
This is so I'm not joking here. These are Post-it notes. I don't want to be an unprepared, interviewer here. I'm just like, yeah, poems, good. Tell me about them. There's very just every one of these is just very interesting, very thought-provoking, humorous, funny. I'm not going to go through and embarrassing and just like read all of them here, and we're going to get the one that says Swift. We're going to get to that one in a second segment of the show here. I love you have the one, in case you're wondering, the price of love is one Post-it note.
Post-it note.
Post-it note with the parentheses written on it like this, and you have the blank. Just remember that love comes and goes, and that whoever promises their love will last forever doesn't have the authority to make such a promise. Did you write that at like 9, 10? When did you write that?
I wrote that when I was 22 and going through my first ever breakup.
The first big one.
Yeah. And he had, in the beginning of our relationship, he had slipped me a Post-it note with a parentheses on it because that was the name of a song that he wanted me to listen to. It was just parentheses. And so when I was going through that breakup, I was so mad at him and was just like, that was just my fuck you poem. There's a few of them in there.
A good fuck you poem is a good thing. These wonderful things, and a lot of them, because of being raised out here, mostly, especially Venice, they're very... including some LA details, and in a way, it strikes me of like, I don't know, like Paul Thomas Anderson's always writing about the San Fernando Valley, and you could feel it.
Right.
A lot of LA, but then you have the one about New York. There, the degrees of sparkle. I felt like I was walking around New York. There's other things in here. Definitely your experiences. In this particular one, but what do you feel when you write about a city? Like, how do you try to capture that? Can you?
How? Yeah.
It feels like it.
I mean, that's an interesting question, and I've been thinking about it recently. How do you go about something intentionally from the beginning? And normally that isn't my experience, because normally I just write and then I will see, oh, this one is shaping up to be about New York, for example. But when I give myself the assignment of how do you, can you really, like in the beginning of quarantine, I wanted to write a poem about someone who believes COVID is a hoax. And I couldn't, because that was an assignment that I had given myself.
Yeah.
And so I don't, when I write about a place, I can't try to make it about the place. I can just pull on my closest memories of that place.
You got the pandemic walk here, as the note as I have here, walking home alone in a pandemic, and I got to tell you, you captured a feeling of being in a silent city, a big silent city during something like this. For me, it was I was out here and working public safety on 9/11, and the night of hearing nothing but military jets flying over the city is something that I'll remember more than anything else of experiencing it. And I'm reading this and I'm going, I didn't experience your specific walk here from Romaine and onto Crescent Heights, but I will never forget that feeling of an empty city.
Right.
So
you lived that.
I have no question. I just want to say kudos.
Thank you.
Because I experienced that.
Thank you.
too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's we're all trying to process this.
Right. And
Yeah.
we're still trying to. I mean, it must after 9/11, it must have taken forever to process, and maybe you still are.
Yeah. Well, and I wasn't in New York, I wasn't in D.C., but
Right.
I had some friends and a friend of a friend and that kind of thing. But yeah, just we all went through it and watched it live.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's my memory.
Right. And I was so young for that like, I mean, I was sort of oblivious. I was old
Sure.
enough to understand it. But this is the second time I think that's happening now where the entire country, but also world now
Yeah.
is kind of like trying to recover, and it's so disorienting.
And we have to allow ourselves that recovery.
I thought it was disorienting when I wrote this poem,
Yeah.
and then like now it's almost even more disorienting that we're at the other end of the whole thing.
Yeah, we hope. We're fully vaxxed here in this office, but
Yeah.
well, it looks like we might be putting masks on, and
Yeah.
I still am too, and it's a
Yeah.
weird thing. And I know what you mean too. It's like you can't, as a writer, as an author, as a poet, you can only put yourself so far into someone else's experience. We can,
Yeah.
but especially with something like this, it's got to be personal.
I'm very impressed when people can completely just. It takes a certain level of genius, I think, to be able to have that level of compassion of, oh, here's a character. I know nothing about them. I'm just going to dive right in and speak
Yeah.
from their perspective. And
Songwriters have a way of doing that. I'm a big fan of Liz Phair, and a lot of some of her biggest hits, particularly on some of her middle albums. I'm like, that's so great. What an experience. And she's like, I just kind of made up that character. Everything. But obviously I know it drew from somewhere, but
Right.
I'm like, I couldn't.
they draw from somewhere, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you.
So far, I haven't been able to do it.
You can do an assignment. You can.
Yeah.
We'll
you
figure
practice.
it out. We'll figure
Yeah,
it out,
you practice. I think it's like anything else you practice.
I do. We're going to talk about some Taylor Swift. Don't worry,
Great.
folks. We're going to talk about some Taylor Swift here and others.
Can't wait.
But I want to talk about poetry itself here. It's first of all, I was thinking today. I was like, who are my favorite poets? And I was like, Shel Silverstein and the Vogons from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't think I know poets.
Right.
Did you have any direct influences? You list some, but what are some specific ones?
Well, so I got really into poetry with Sylvia Plath, and so I would say she's my favorite. And then T.S. Eliot is another one that I think had an influence on me. And then I've started really reading. I went to grad school and started reading my colleagues' poetry and the professors' books that worked there. So I read now. There's this author or poet, Morgan Parker, who I just discovered through people at my grad school, and then Matthew Dickman, who was a professor at my grad school. And kind of just Jamal Mays, who was also a professor at my grad school. So it's like I don't even know what a famous poet is unless they're dead. But but so these are
Stay with us.
Yeah.
Stay with us, please. So I really identify with that, not to turn it into my own experiences here, but in terms of stand-up comedy, I've got my favorite comics,
Right.
but people used to ask me, I'm like, well, it's the guys and gals I'm working with every day.
Yeah, the guys you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It tracks. It
right.
works.
It works. It tracks. That adds up.
Yeah, it adds
Yeah,
up.
it adds up.
Saying you're a poet is it's easy for anyone. I've got about 200 song lyrics hidden in a binder that I wrote at 20. They'll never see the light of day. They'll never see the light of day. I think putting poetry out is braver than even some of the wonderful other words you've written and other people have written. How did this come about? How did you finally decide to do this?
So it was about like 6 months into quarantine, and I had just gotten back into being able to write poetry. I had like 5 years where I had just severe writer's block when it came to poetry. But so I wrote a bunch in quarantine, and then I took the ones from before the hiatus and combined them and just wanted to see how many I had. And then it all comes back to Taylor Swift, really. It is always going to come back to Taylor Swift, but she was very productive during quarantine and very vulnerable, as always. And I'm always inspired by how if she is scared to be vulnerable, we don't know about it because she just does it.
Yeah.
And I felt like I actually had a moment where I started like craving vulnerability, like I needed to do something vulnerable. And so I reached out to some publishers and I was like, I just would love to do this.
Wow. No, that's I mean, I can't wait to dive into these myself. You're writing characters, writing experiences. Narrative is hard to put together, but you're so right. This is unapologetically you.
Yeah.
You can't hide behind much.
I didn't think I could do this ever. Wow. That's why I did these first. And like when I was younger, I was able to do these. I'm 31 now. It wasn't until now that I was able to do this. In terms of writing them is one thing, but
sharing them. You're on a show. This old guy with a gray beard's got Post-it notes.
Yeah.
You're in these pages.
Yeah.
You're in these pages, and you did it. And there's more to come.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to pressure you to do more.
Yeah. I'm working on hopefully a second book of poems.
All right. You mentioned Taylor Swift. We are going to take a quick break here as we share some facts for y'all. And then we're going to come back, and we're going to dive in to the Taylor Swift of it all and other pop stars as well. Go ahead, Guy. All right. 25 years ago, the UK release, it was released a little bit later, almost, I think, January 97 in America. Spice Girls Wanna Be, a song that absolutely changed the world. If you watch my programming enough here, especially the old show Internet for Old People, you know I have I don't even know what to call it. I'm a fan of the Spice Girls. And I wasn't always a fan of the Spice Girls. When I was a rock DJ in the 90s, I used to go on air and just tear them apart. Because how could anyone love this? And then one day I realized I absolutely loved the Spice Girls music. The same cycle kind of repeats over and over. Britney Spears, who, of course, we're rooting for her. We're rooting for she gets to choose her own lawyer now. We got some movement in this case here. Her, Christina Aguilera, it doesn't matter. Every generation always says throws up a pop chart. Throws a hero up the pop charts, as Paul Simon once sang. And then we love to tear them down. And we love to destroy them. And we love to cast them aside. And just, you're fluff, you're done, you're nothing. And this shattered human remains. And we have, we do that time and time again. And I turn to you now, Zara. Because when I hear that you are a Taylor Swift fan, a Swiftie as they're called.
Yes.
You are a fan. Are you a fan of Spice Girls as well?
I am a mega Spice Girls fan. And when I heard that you were too, that's when I first knew I wanted to come talk to you, because that's a big deal. And
we still might be doing, I'm trying to put together an Internet for Old People version of just a Spice Girls dedicated episode. Yeah. That was going to be. I was thinking of that was going to be the first time to have you on, but then I cooked up this idea of a show, and yeah, I really want to talk to you about that right now, because we'll dive into Taylor Swift here. It is easy from a casual onlooker to look at the two of us here on the screen and say, well, of course she's going to like this. It's marketed for the youngsters, the girls. And I'm over here as a music fan that just thinks, at the end of the day, take away your own personal pretension and ego. And great music is great music. Mm-hmm. And even if you get it or not. And I have embraced that. How do you take that music, Spice Girls, whenever you came to love them, or Taylor Swift, and how do you grow with them as a fan?
Oh my God, yeah. Well, first of all, when you love something, you love it truly, and you don't get over it. You don't move on.
Great.
That's how, even though my tastes evolve, and I will notice that, Taylor Swift's early stuff speaks less to me than her current stuff, but that's because we were both 16 when she was writing that stuff, and now we're both 31, and so of course it's going to make more sense to me. So I resonate more with that. But the stuff with the Spice Girls, my childhood was just made up of memories of Spice Girls. They meant the world to me. As soon as they came out in England first, like you said, and my best friend, always did vacations in England. So she came back from England before we had them here, and she was like, I have the CD, you have to listen to it.
You have to hear it.
It's so good. And she had magazines with all of the pictures of these. And I still vividly remember being like, how am I ever going to remember which one is which Spice Girl? Like, they're all so... But of course, like, within seconds, I knew them all.
I love that she's like, I've come back from the future.
Yeah.
I've come from afar. I brought spices and Spice Girls.
Spice Girls.
I'll never make you choose a favorite, but do you have someone that you lean to?
I do lean to Jerry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always did.
There's something, even with her leaving, and you look back, and I watched the documentary that was actually, it's already several years old, but the documentary about their kind of mid-2000s comeback. I got a lot of what she was trying to do.
Yeah.
She took a lot of heat.
Absolutely. People hated her for it.
Yeah.
And I actually hated her for it because we had tickets to see the tour, and she ended up not being in it.
Yeah.
I saw a tour with 4 Spice Girls. That makes me want to cry when I think about it.
Maybe there's still time. There's still time. Look,
well, then I came back for the 2007 and saw them all together.
That's right. That was the time frame. And specifically here to dive into some of the details, again, going back to the mid-90s, I'm in my early 20s. Hopefully all of us from our 20s mature and continue to mature and grow. And I was in rock radio, and I'm a huge Oasis fan, and they come out of that UK lad culture, which kind of dominated in a lot of ways, not just music, but the magazines and all this kind of thing. And I'm not here to decry that, but out of that comes someone like me with hair down to my belt and a big rock and roll beard going, I can't, even if I didn't connect with the Spice Girls music, I just can't allow for it to happen. And that discounts, what I don't like about that. Now, this goes the way I talk about Star Wars, how I adore everything that's in the prequels, but I also adore what they introduced this franchise I love to a new generation, and you've got to allow for that to happen. For me, as a rock DJ, I almost feel like I'm apologizing to you. Did you listen to K-Bear back in Pismo back in the day? Probably not.
When I was 7, all the time.
Yeah, all the time. It's like, how could I go out of my way to deny the experiences that you were having with this band?
Right.
It's not fair.
Right.
It's not right.
It's not right, even though, what I really credit my parents with was that all the parents were hating on the Spice Girls so
it's easy
much.
to do sometimes.
And I always heard other parents saying it's not music, turn it off, this isn't music, it's so outraged.
Yeah.
And I remember my parents, they had great taste in music, and I knew that they didn't love what they were hearing, but they totally supported what they were like, yes, my mom took us to get tickets to, she was absolutely supportive of the Spice Girl thing, which was great.
It leads to other conversations too. It's like, all right, you may not like country or rap or any other genre, but that thing that it's not acceptable. Well, that's not music. No. You're discounting cultures, upbringings, experiences. So much of that.
Oh, people love saying what isn't music, and it's like, okay, to you, maybe you're not loving it, but.
Before we get to the big one here, we're going to transition. Specifically on the Spice Girls, could you explain to me what that meant to have 5 women on stage talking about girl power in this era of the 90s, which I know you're young and impressionable at the time, but it was Maxim magazine, all this stuff. And again, if you have a subscription to Maxim, I'm not taking that away from you. I'm just saying during that time, what did that all mean to you, and how you grew up with that those thoughts in your head from them?
Yeah, I still think about that a lot because I felt, even at that young age, I already felt frustrated and oppressed by boys and the treatment they got versus what I got. And I remember kind of hating them because of that.
Hating the Spice Girls?
No, hating boys.
Oh, well, that's fair.
Because of that. I was like, I hate them.
We're going to go to the judges. It's allowed.
It's allowed? Okay. But so when the Spice Girls were actively saying girl power, I felt like, hell yes, let's go all in with this. Let's get the shirts that say girl power, and let's not forget it, that girls are amazing and fabulous. The kind of tension, I guess, was between what they were saying and the very sexy way they were dressing.
Sure.
And so I remember always, I was so young, but I would hear the chitter chatter among the adults, is it really girl power if they're dressing for men versus, oh, really? Are they dressing for men? I don't know that you could say they're dressing for men, and being too young to understand what the parents were talking about.
Sure.
But in retrospect, I think they were very, in retrospect, they were sex positive is what they were, and you can be feminist and sex positive, and they were truly girl power.
Controlling their narrative, I should say. Not to, if anyone's not, that's why I absolutely love Black Widow as a film. I'm not a huge MCU person, but I love it. Literally, the movie's not subtle. It literally says, here's an entire country full of women, young women, whose life has been controlled by the men, literally up in the clouds and tossed away. killed for no reason, destroyed for no reason. They're narrative controlled, and that movie is very much about that kind of stuff. And I look back at that kind of stuff, and it's like that was never going to be my experience.
Right.
But for me to try to kick it out of the airplane and not understand it or not recognize it.
Well, right. It's good you're a human being, so you're aware and you can get it.
And then also just the song slap. Scott, is that the term? Scott, is that the term? Bangers? Slap? Okay.
It definitely slaps. The songs slap. And even though they don't when I hear a Spice Girl song, 'cause I don't listen to them enough to get bored by them. When I hear them occasionally, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
Same as when a Britney song comes on, it's very exciting because it's the best.
Well, the Britney stuff, I shared the experiences on many podcasts, so I don't. I'll summarize it here, but again, it's not necessarily even designed for me on a musical level. It's not necessarily my experience with my song. It took the band Travis, a bunch of guys, get up on stage, and they opened a show for Oasis, and they're the ones that Fran Healy comes out and says, we dedicate this next song to people who love music. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. And they start doing a cover of Hit Me Baby One More Time, and I just was like almost tears, like, this song speaks to me. And it took that moment. It did take them, but it took that moment for me just to be like, maybe I should get off whatever high horse I've climbed up on as a music star.
Yeah, no, I had a moment with that similarly where I never liked Beyonce, and then I heard a cover of a Beyonce song where it was broken down, and I was like, oh, the only reason I don't like Beyonce is because I have ideas about I'm too good for this or I should be too good for this. And, yeah.
And look, you're not going to connect to everything. You don't have to connect to everything. That's not the way it works, but I love that. All right, I think, where did my Post-it note go? Well, okay, you have a great piece of work in here. It fell, didn't it? Fell.
Yeah, it fell.
You probably know the page about becoming a Taylor Swift fan.
Yes.
Take me through this. It's fascinating. I read this. Here it is. My Post-it note did fall. How to become a Swiftie. It starts in fall of 2008.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way up to pretty much present day here. Yeah, present and a great list. This, and I got it. And again, Taylor Swift's not someone I have had a strong connection to. I sometimes feel sorry for her. I'm like, why does everyone hate this nice girl?
Yeah.
Take me through this journey here.
Okay.
Talk Swiftie stuff to me. Talk Swiftie to me. Is that good?
That's got to be something.
That's got to be something.
Right? When she first came out, I didn't care much about her. That was 2006. I thought, exactly what we're talking about now, I thought, oh, that's country. That's not for me. Also, I'm way too cool for this. Give me a break. But I couldn't have been more wrong. And I think about that all the time, how I missed out on those first 2 years of her because I was busy being too good for it.
Yeah.
But this poem outlines the process of going from someone who knows nothing about Taylor Swift, doesn't care, all the way to someone whose life has been deeply impacted by her lyrics and her music, and then into the territory of being obsessed and thinking so much about her. And when I wrote the last part of the poem, I was in a place where her album Lover was about to come out, and I was just transfixed with hanging on every word. What is she going to say next? When is the album going to come out? What's it going to be like? And I was like, I can't believe I used to not care. There was a time when I cared nothing for this person.
That's so weird, huh?
Yeah.
I also love when that happens as music, because I'm a big music guy, obviously, but just when you look back and you're like, I missed it. I'm not just talking about some of the Spice Girls for me, but just a band, an artist, a song that you were aware of, and then suddenly you go back and you're like, it was there all along.
It was there all along, right in front of my eyes. She's so talented as a songwriter, but she doesn't look like it on the outside necessarily. Now she does, but I mean, when you think 2009 era, blonde, curly hair, Taylor Swift, young, almost Barbie looking.
Sure.
You're like, I wouldn't look at that and say, oh, brilliant songwriter, but she is.
She's gone through a transition, like you kind of touched on here, just aesthetically or musically, the beginning of the country thing. Which, the moment someone's any kind of label, it can shut part of your brain down if you're like, I don't I don't like that.
Right.
She's transitioned a little bit, which I think is a sign of growth as an artist.
Yeah.
Was there any point you were like, this isn't my Taylor, and you had to work through it, or you've just followed her journey all along?
I have followed her journey all the way through and have been very accepting of whenever she makes a big change. I get very afraid every time I can tell she's about to make a big change, because I think, oh, maybe I'm gonna say I hate this, but I never end up hating it.
Is it that because the core of who she is an artist it remains, right?
Yeah. She remains honest to a fault and vulnerable, not to a fault, vulnerable just in a very impressive way.
Yeah.
And that's at the core of all of it.
Yeah. To go back to Liz Phair, in the early 2000s, she big switch, and she starts working with The Matrix, and this is the era of Avril Lavigne, and Liz makes a play for airplay, unapologetically, and that album gets read. But I wrote at the time, I was writing for tinymixtapes.com, this music zine of just like, at the core of that album is a recently divorced single mother telling her tale. Just, it's catchy tunes. Search for the heart, search for the soul, and that always was there for me. It sounds like Taylor's just that type of artist.
Yeah, and I remember, and Taylor actually recently, I guess over a year and a half ago now, made a playlist of all her favorite women musicians who inspired her, and Liz Phair songs from that album were on there, and I think she did have an influence on Taylor in terms of like, you can just write the truth.
The truth.
Yeah.
Truth. I love that. Write the truth.
Yeah.
And you've written the truth. You've written the truth in here.
Yeah. This is like, I'm not lying.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're not? Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. No, there's some wonderful things in there. We're almost done here today. We're almost done. We got some more things going, but I don't mean to just turn this entirely into a pop music conversation. Music is so powerful, but I'm fascinated by this stuff, because even now, to hear someone say, I absolutely love Taylor Swift, you immediately think, yeah, like not to me, but I'm like, and in my head I'm like, what is it? You're supposed to love Barbra Streisand or something? Which, by the way, was my mom's favorite artist. But like Taylor, from that starting point as a country pop star, you can keep someone in that box and not grow with them, and you have grown with her.
Yes, I have. Thank you.
As a music fan, I love that. I love hearing that kind of fandom.
Yeah, that's not going to go away.
Are you now going to write a novel to meet Taylor? Or have you already met Taylor?
I wish I have.
Okay.
I have not. The main character in this book is obsessed with Taylor Swift.
It's the best.
In a kind of American Psycho way, where, you know, in American Psycho, he always kind of like will randomly interrupt the plot to start talking about Whitney Houston and how upset. And I took that and thought, oh my God, I have to do that with Taylor Swift. So I worked that in, where she's just like telling the story, but then she'll be like, when Taylor Swift did this, blah, blah, and you're like, is this girl okay? Where?
is this girl okay?
Which is kind of how my mind works also. It's modeled after my own brain, obviously.
Like any good writer.
But so, I wrote the Taylor Swift book, and actually the novel I'm writing now is also about a pop star very much inspired by Taylor Swift. So, you know, one-track mind sometimes.
It's perfect. Taylor, if you're watching right now, Fake Plastic Girl in my hands. You need to read this book, and you need to get to know Zara, okay? I'm putting that out there. I'm manifesting that. All right. We are almost done here, but not before. We have a segment I call Tell the Truth coming up. But before that, we got our weekly installment of the Robbie Minute.
You know, lots of things make me happy. Beautiful scenery makes me happy. A good book will always brighten my spirits. And who doesn't love an amazing piece of... But you know what brings me the most joy? Sharing joy with others. And there are so many ways you can do that. Call a loved one and share some good, funny, or interesting news with them. Somebody just started a petition to refilm the last installment of the Space Wizards trilogy. Call Ken.
Ken is no longer accepting your calls because of the restraining order against you, Heifer.
Perform a random act of kindness. I baked you a cake.
There's a giant piece missing.
Don't be greedy. Compliment a stranger.
That's very kind of you.
And this has been your Robbie Minute. I am sweating. It is so hot in here. There'll be a puddle and a weave in about 3 seconds.
Robbie Smith teaching us all how to get through life. Share and enjoy the Robbie Minute, a regular segment here on Ken Goes Live. All right, Zara, we have reached our final segment of the night to tell the truth. All right, this is 3 questions. And don't worry, I'm not trying to get you. I'm not trying to dig too deep. But there's just some things on the table that I want to know. I'll start with this. What do you say first about yourself now when describing what you do? Author or poet?
I say novelist.
That's a third option I didn't even include.
Even think of. Yeah.
Why?
Because I feel like that's really what I do is write novels. Maybe one day I will author a memoir or something like that. But my favorite format is novels, fiction.
With Taylor Swift's favorite book.
Yeah.
Favorite series.
Taylor Swift
That's
loves
wonderful. Okay, that makes sense. Are you at any point afraid of the poet label? Is that too much?
No, I mean I'm afraid of what it carries. Yeah, and
Sure.
that will people roll their eyes at me if I say I'm a poet?
Like
for sure.
Look, if you're at a party and you get asked, I get this all the time. What do you do? I don't want to admit podcaster is one of them.
Yeah, right. It's people.
It shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't be that way, but people are jerks, basically.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you're a poet, you're a poet. But also, I think people, when you say you're a poet, people are like, "Oh, really? Like, you mean
Right.
you've written some poems? Like, congratulations, who hasn't?"
And you can be like, yes.
Yes, I have. But so if someone called me a poet, I
Yeah.
would not be afraid of that. I'd say, "Oh, that's
Great.
an amazing compliment. Thank you."
Do you have a shirt that just says poet on it?
That would be cool. No, I don't.
We're going to get
I
that
don't.
for you. We'll work that out. We'll work that out.
Amazing. I will wear it.
What type of reality show would you be really good on?
Oh, that is interesting. Okay, I think I'd be really good in a terrible way at like one of those real world type things where like I think I would be a mess on it, but I think that's good for the ratings. People would want to watch it.
Like what kind of mess? Slapping your roommates or crying in the confessional booth?
Crying all the time and like being like, I can't stand it here, having a breakdown every day. And I think that would make for good TV. People would come back to see like when's Zara gonna have another meltdown.
What real world city would you want to do this in? Which season?
I don't know the seasons of like where they've been. Where have they been?
It's been. I mean, by the time it all kind of wrapped up everywhere. But Seattle was one of mine. A lot of drama at the Seattle house.
I love Seattle, so that would be fun. And a dramatic setting would have been a good one for me.
Yeah, I think there was a slap, a lot of crying. Seattle was a good spot there.
I've only slapped one person, and it was my best friend. And I'm sorry, Hannah, for that time that I slapped you.
Oh, well, Hannah, you're not here to defend yourself, but who knows? Who knows what happened? I don't want to say anyone deserved anything, but Hannah will dig into that. All right, final question. I never want to put any guest on the spot. I never want to get too personal if they don't want to, but I've got to ask this question. What is one of the best things about getting married in Vegas that no one thinks about? So I attended your wedding virtually. It was one of my pandemic highlights. It's a lot of fun.
There are so many cool things about getting married in Vegas that no one thinks about that I never would have thought about.
No.
I don't even know where to start or how to count, but aside from like Elvis being there to marry you, which was hilarious, and he was in character, and I couldn't get him out of character. He stayed in character the whole time. I asked him where he was from, and he was like, Memphis. And Scott said it too with him in unison, and I was like,
What do you think?
I was like, obviously.
Great.
I was like, okay, I was just trying to ask a question. But what I really loved, and maybe this is corny and romantic, but like to walk from our hotel room just across the street to this little chapel at night by ourselves at sunset, get married really fast, and then walk back like as a married couple, alone, unbothered by the crowds and the people who normally come to see you at a normal wedding.
Yeah.
Just to go there unmarried and to walk away back to our room 6 minutes later, a married couple, was so cool. And then our hotel room, they upgraded us to a penthouse suite, which was, that's the coolest part,
A couple
really.
of chips and a penthouse suite.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
That you truly are a poet and a heart of a poet. I love how you describe that. I've never been married myself. This engagement is more of a, we'll see. It's a Kurt Russell, Goldie Hawn thing right now. Okay.
That's okay.
I've been to some giant weddings, and 5 months later they were filing paperwork. And that ain't everything. And I'm not. If you've had a giant wedding out there, that ain't. I'm not casting aspersions, but every couple talks about it. I don't even remember it. Everyone's coming up to you.
Yes.
All that stuff, and you got to experience the actual spirit of the event.
I always think people always say, I hear that all the time. They say, I don't remember it. It went by like a blur. And even though ours was 6 minutes only, it was not a blur. I remember everything about it, and I always will remember everything about it.
That's wonderful.
So yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
You might see if I can convince Grace. Vegas might work.
It's so fun. It was so fun.
I love it. And it was great. It was, I got the invite, and, I love weddings. I love dancing at weddings. We've all been to some wonderful weddings, but it's like you get that invite, you're like, okay, yeah, I got to put some time out. Okay, I'll block that time off. And Scott was like, yeah, it's going to be like minutes. I was like, I had like sweatpants on. I watched it from a live stream. It was the best wedding I attended. I wasn't even there.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that because it's so brief. We were just in, out, happy, laughing, joking the whole time. And so, yeah, it was really fun, really easy.
Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. You have done it. You have told the truth, Zara.
I did. I told the truth.
You told the truth. You told the truth. We are almost out of here. As always, we like to kind of wrap this all up with a little thing we call What We Learn. What did we learn today? Nothing is disposable when it comes to entertainment because it reaches someone. It connects with someone. The story that you don't hear is being heard by someone else. Also, we heard it's better to go to Vegas, get married, get an upgrade, and just live in the moment. And also, it's okay to chase your dreams, to write poetry, to share yourself, and to be vulnerable. We learned that because of our guest today, Zara Lisbon. Thank you so much. Thank you kindly, and thank you so much for coming in studio
Thank
today.
you so much for having me. This was fun.
Was it okay?
Yeah.
You okay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I know you don't do a lot of video interviews.
Yeah,
I want to make
this
sure you're
was great.
comfortable.
This was really great.
Did Akaika treat you well at the front door?
Oh, yeah. Everyone was really nice.
No upgrades here, but
No,
good,
the
it's
whole
good.
thing was an upgrade.
whole
Just look
thing
at
is
this
an upgrade.
video situation.
We got all these books. You can find all these books. You can go right now to wherever fine books are booked. Amazon, all those other ones. Anything specific if they want to get the book, if they want to track it down?
It's really easy on Amazon, but I would love you to go to your local bookstore and ask them to order it for you if it's not already there.
Yes, and speaking as someone who's hawking books all the time, why we love Star Wars, but if you go to the bookstore and they don't have it and they order it, they'll usually order a couple.
Yeah.
And then some other people.
Some
get the
other
book.
people might get it. Yeah.
Check it out. I absolutely loved my experience reading all these poems in Baby's First Apocalypse. Great photo. Some jerk take this photo.
Yeah, so my husband, your friend, Scott, took that photo.
Let's not assume too much with that label.
The person you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely a friend.
Yeah, he took that photo during quarantine, which is why I used it.
Perfect. It's beautiful. I'll have him maybe do some headshots for me.
No, he's a great photographer.
He is. He's a very talented man. He's very well.
Yeah.
We'll put him in the hot seat.
Yeah, he'd do good. He'd do well.
Thank you all for watching here today. We love bringing you all the content that we can. And we have got some content on the way. That's right. Tomorrow, Josh Brady, special guest, Nick Scarpino, Greg Miller from Kinda Funny. They will be checking in virtually. In studio in the morning, Mark Ellis returns. Mark Ellis and I, quite frankly, are going to be hawking stand-up comedy tickets and shows. That's right. Mark Ellis and I and Daniel Bridge-Gadd from the GPA family are going to be up in Seattle, Washington, or thereabouts at the El Corazon Theater. You can go to markellis.live for more information, get tickets. We'll be talking about that tomorrow. And I think I just added a show at the Ha Ha Club locally with Daniel Bridge-Gadd on August 31st. More details coming on that as well. But more information if you watch the Positivity Report in the morning. Ikaika, we do have a new chicken break coming on Saturday, right? You do?
Yep.
We do? if you guys enjoyed Josh McCouga and Ikaika Shifley eating chicken bakes from Costco, part 2, an entire new bake, is coming your way this Saturday. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast version of the shows. This will be on there as well. You can just search Good People Association wherever you find podcasts. That is it for now, my friends. We'll see you next time on Ken Goes Live. Peace.